Hi everybody. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to this lunch talk. This is the second one in a series where I'll be talking to experts about data governance in the agri-food sector. The last time I talked to some expert about who owns a farmer's data, and this time we'll be discussing what is actually in it for the farmer. My name is Josje Spierings. I'm a project manager at Fairfood, and I'm very happy that I'm joined today by Derrick Komwangi. Derrick is a project manager for ACPCU. He's been working there for 3 years already, and he has about 8 years of experience in working in communities and with groups of farmers. So Derrick has a strong interest in research, social and community-based economics. And his belief is that economics should not exist in an abstract sense, but rather exist to serve the interest of people. So it really have a social welfare function. And this interest and belief will definitely come back in this talk. So Derrick worked for ACPCU, and ACPCU stands for Ankole Coffee Producers Cooperative Union in Uganda. And ACPCU is a large cooperative union. So you have 26 cooperatives and the cooperatives that are members, and they represent 26,000 farmers in Uganda. You've also told me that these cooperatives have many different certifications, like Fair Trade, EU Organic, Natureland, JES, Rainforest Alliance, and ISO 20000. And there's even more certifications coming up. So like the upcoming deforestation regulation of the European Union. All these regulations, all these certifications, they require a lot of data. And in this talk, we'll be talking about what does that mean for ACPCU and what does that mean for the farmers that you're working with. So my first question for you, Derrick, is, do you also see this increase of data coming in, the requests of data coming in for these certifications and regulations?
Yeah, thank you. And hi, everyone. I'm glad to be joining here. Yes, the request of data from farmers is increasing over the recent past, and it seems that there's no one certification that covers it all. There is always one request that comes and ushers in another, the whole range of data, and this is even increasing the mistrust with farmers. And it's more of, you were here the other time around, why are you coming now even requesting for more data when actually the resultant benefits are not matching the data. So this is increasing, and it puts a huge cost on produce organizations. And this I speak not for ACPCU, but all for small, I think, produce organizations in the Global South experience this. On average, it will take you around $50 to certify, a farmer, for all the year round. If you disintegrated the audit costs for everything or certification. So for us, we get our eyebrows raised when we hear of more certification requirement, data requirement, but we have hands tied. We have to, in one or the other, live up to these certifications because, it's a market requirement, consumer driven, and this in one or the other affects us, but we have nothing to say.
Yeah, but like you said, it costs a lot of resources, both capacity and financially. How do you manage that as ACPCU and with the cooperatives?
Yeah, so I would like to say that cooperatives by nature exist on trust. And like for issues, the cooperatives do not ask a lot into this because I hear subsequent conversations have come up on should farmers be paid, should cooperatives be paid, who owns the data, and all this would have sparked the cost even higher. But because of the understanding that cooperatives are in their sense owned by farmers, then they know that they are in this together, and this somehow reduces. And for a farmer to join a cooperative, more voluntary, and there is more of a blanket consent form. I am using the word blanket intentionally and cautiously, because I cannot say I've consented for something that is going to come the next day. But more or less, that is what they sign on to, that we are going to use our product, use our everything in our own means to market together and earn together. And so this, we ride on that collective trust to ensure that we feed the requirements of this certification. So this is by one says that's how we have managed to cope up with these certification requirements. And bottom line is that cooperatives, you exist to maximize benefit to farmers. So against this increasing request of data, then we also have to stand to maximize benefits, so that farmers at one point in time do not say, no, this is not paying, this is not worth it. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so actually, whenever a cooperative joins and a farmer joins, it's like, okay, you're joining this cooperative, and based on trust, we say we need some data for you to do certain certifications, and then that's sort of a blank statement. So whenever new data requests come in, they're still compliant with that. Now, for example, with the deforestation regulations, there's more and more private or quite sensitive data, maybe even like the plots, to register those. Is there any concerns that you notice from the cooperatives and the farmers around that? The more sensitive the data gets, are they still willing to share?
Yeah, because this is coming against where we have land issues, land rights, so you're here remotely, surveying someone's land, and those are the questions that come, of course, on top of the financial aspects involved in that. So. But bottom line, what I want to say is that farmers are rational, and they will keep ticking the boxes. If this data brings a considerable return, then they know that it is for the greater good. But if there is no any additional benefits with these huge requirements, then farmers are likely to chicken out. And this is something we have seen in the past, that farmers now are increasingly aware of and concerned of who takes the picture and who does what, where is it going to go, and all that. So I think this is high time we had such conversation to say, then if farmers are asking that, do we have a framework in which to deliver or upon their requests, or start arguing about the frameworks of data protections? Because like we said, for us, we are at the forefront. We can guarantee the rights, the data security from the cooperative union backwards, but apart from us, we do not have that infrastructure yet. We do not have that expertise. So that we rely on the trust going forward. But should there be any challenge, then it goes back to the cooperatives, and which do not have even the infrastructure to answer that question. So for us here, we can only call for the right regulations, because I think for us, and cooperatives view data as a public good, and so it should be democratically, managed. We see in some instances where this continued request of data now has started breeding, private ownership of this data, which is against cooperatives. We are having oligopolistic cartels, they are feeding into further decommoditization of coffee, which has not yielded much towards giving farmers a living income. So those are things we are worried of.
Yeah.
Yeah, but a collective dialogue, I'm sure, can answer all these questions.
Yeah, so as ACPCU, you really function as a safeguard between the cooperatives and the brands or exporters that you're working with. And then whenever a request comes in for like a new certification, how do you deal with that? How do you make the decision at ACPCU if you are going to ask the cooperatives for the data or not?
Yeah, so first of all, the requests, I would say if
I think
the
we've
request.
lost. Derrick, we lost you for a second, but if you can start again with your answer, you're back again.
Oh yeah, the request first of all has to be evaluated in our own capacity to see, is it safe, is it going to be used for the right purpose, the credibility of the person who's asking, and I will not lie, the benefits that that would come for that, and if they are assessed and to say they are more of a good than harm, then we go on to engage cooperatives and get this data, because as much as we are worried of these requests and what, we very well know the importance of this data. So we cannot sit and lie, because about the European coffee report was even highlighting the need for more data, that they cannot trace the volumes and the types of coffee up to this date in their accuracy. That's shaming in this century. So we exist also to ensure that we can feed the gap, to use this data for more additional, for further integration of the value chain services like financial inclusion, risk mapping, all these things. So, but we have to take the caution. It is a necessary evil, but we have to walk the talk. Yeah.
Yeah, and because I think when we also last spoke, you also told me that you usually collect things using paper and pen, manual data collection, and now you're also transferring to a more, to a more system digitization of your systems. What do you see as the opportunities and challenges there?
Yeah, like I said, SCPCU has existed since 2006. And we can trace back our data, I think, as early as 2010, around there. But all these data exists in silos, does not communicate to each other for lack of better support frameworks or infrastructure around. So we are now trying to digitize, and thank you, Fairfood. The team on ground is helping us to digitize and make this data communicate to each other. And we see that for this, it will inform better decision making, better price risk management, better season planning, because we advance even financial products to our farmers. So, and this we can use it to profile farmers, to risk map how much each person is due or can pay without with minimal interruption in their way of living. So, and all these potentials have been lying, idle. So, and I think this when we harvest the data well, it can help us move our services much higher.
Yeah, and what are your main challenges with doing that? Because I can imagine it requires a lot of training and capacity building for your team and the cooperatives.
Yes, to begin with, even in our own orthodox way, you have to have 270, for example, farmers per one extension officer. So this transition in the short term requires manpower on ground to make sure that all the information is digitized. It requires training. It requires the infrastructure, which is all non-existent. So, and when such regulations come on board, and I think that when these regulations are made, they are Eurocentric. So you find the transition period given to these small produce organizations is really are not enough. Neither is the capacity, on ground. So these two things I would emphasize that are compelling. Um, Compelling infrastructure and capacity building should be availed for these producer organizations to transmit, because like I said, the cost of certifying one individual farmer would be around $50. So if for all our certifications around that, so if you add another, that's an additional cost of which we do not see a similar change in prices, so
Yeah, of
that
course.
is.
Yeah. And some certifications, of course, have like a price increase with it. Like, for example, fair trade certification, you get an extra price on your coffee. But something like this, like the EU regulation, that doesn't really come naturally with a price increase from the brands. Have you already had conversations with the organizations you're working with, and are they also willing to support you with this transition and data collection? Or yeah, how are these
Yeah,
conversations?
this is a conversation where we're opening. Yeah, because we feel these are also a kind of non-tariff, because if there's no capacity to break this barrier, then you have closely locked out. But and a number of ethical companies, trading houses have come up, and we are collectively, assessing situation to see what we can do collectively. So, so we have been engaging together with partner, for example, Fair Trade Original with you, Fairfood, to transition and make sure that this shock does not. We reduce the impact of this shock, the transition by 2025, and we have more of a seamless transition to the requirement.
Sounds good. A lot of opportunities, but also a lot of challenges.
Yeah.
And when bringing back towards, you were saying also that the farmers are more and more interested in also receiving their own data. Like, how are you at the moment, or the cooperatives bringing back the data to them? Do they have any access to their own information, or is that something that you're working on?
I think this is also potential that digitization can work, because I see this is rather hard to avail to farmers information on a paper form, because uh, if so, you would have to avail all the people, all information, some that they do not need, and you would bring on privacy and privacy issues. So, but with digitization, and I think this can be achieved, where we have farmers, for example, we have now, for example, 69% of our farmers with at least a basic mobile phone, and using, for example, USSD codes. This information can be moved to the respective farmer, but formally on paper, this could not be availed. Even a basic farmer does not have time to count the number of trees he has. So the extension officer is the one who counts. And if there is any way of how such information can be put back to the farmer, then yeah, that is a benefit to the farmer. And I think not only this benefit, we tend to think that the benefits to a farmer can only be monetary, but I think if this information is available to farmer, it has the capacity to even break these production related challenges, even supply rigidities, here and there. So yeah,
Yeah, because I can imagine also more knowing how many trees you have, also maybe how much fertilizer you need, that it could also help you with those kind of calculations for farmers. But those are not done yet. So that is something you see maybe within the digitization future. But at the moment, the data is collected by the officers, and they just put it into the system.
Yeah. So it is. I think all produce organizations want to have a fully traceable and transparent value chain. But the speed at which the transition is coming, I think, is what is a shock to produce
Yeah.
organizations. Yeah. So, like for us, we would want to have our product fully traceable, because we are committed, for example, to living the journey to living income. And we know that data plays a critical role, for example. So that consumers are increasingly becoming aware of what they consume. They want to know what impact does this product do? Is it sustainably sourced? So, and these are claims that we want to answer and on, even without the force of the regulation. But the transition should be even aware of the local context and where we stand and where they want us to be. I think that is where the challenges do exist.
Yeah, and you say that for the cooperatives and farmers, it's sometimes a little bit of a shock. And what is that shock then? Where's the main worries that they have?
Yeah, for example, I will tell you, it's until recent 2018 that the last cooperative, our last cooperative got um, uh, a desktop. So if you're talking about desktop, then you're looking at remote access to your financial transactions. You know what? So all that is a shock. That means requires training. And I will tell you, the average age of a Ugandan coffee farmer is 56. You see, so that gives you into people who are in decision-making positions. Someone who has been altogether used to his physical cash, liquid money. You're not going to talk about now e-cash, whatever, e-document, e-certification, e-extension services. So that is a shock. So, but yeah, even Rome wasn't built in one day.
Yeah, so that's been the first step. So now all the cooperatives have their own desktop computer and
Yeah,
access to their the details of the transactions that they make
yeah,
with farmers. Yeah, that's
yeah,
nice. And I think also I can imagine that especially if you're talking about like living income, you also need to do more income surveys about what's the actual income, which is quite sensitive data for
yeah,
farmers to give.
yeah.
How are you dealing with those kind of requests? More, yeah, the income related questions.
Yeah, the income related questions are really putting us on the spot, because in the past we have been asking questions that really to be in our jurisdiction. Like you're talking about extension data, how many trees, what was your production last year, what do you anticipate, what in the cost of the inputs you put in. But now when you cross the line to how much did you earn, even outside the coffee, you better have a solution to the problem that is coming next.
Mm,
You see, so this is why we were trying to advocate, use any opportunity that is available to make sure that more partners come on board and we deliver to such an ambitious claim we are putting ourselves on. We are now very lucky that the price of coffee is above the leap, and uh, in one way or the other, it is answering the question. But we cannot claim our effect now. But this is something saying that by the time the coffee prices go down, we have very many players who are willing to commit to this living income campaign, and we can deliver to the farmer. So yes, and just to also use this opportunity to make it sink, yeah, is that uh, the more people commit to a living income, the more uh, coffee coffee the more coffees become productive. Even the lower the prices, the ultimate consumer pays. So in the long run, the leap will even bring the prices lower, making the coffee business sustainable for both the producer and the consumer. In that way, no one loses. So
yeah.
I'm sorry this was not on, but I'm just using the opportunity to
Yeah,
pour.
no, I think I completely agree. So yeah, it's a very exciting journey that you're also looking into that. But indeed, it's also sensitive data, and I think what you've been saying also in this talk, which really resonates also with me, is that you're actually fine with providing the data, giving the data it's of course securely stored and managed well, but also if it has a benefit towards the farmers, which can be monetary by extra financing, but can also be access to market, or certain certification that also provides you other customers. And I think that's a quite crucial point from like how, whenever there's a data request, what is in it for the farmer, so you can actually put in the funds to do it. And also how can you share those funding responsibilities, I think is a quite good question, especially for these European regulations, which everybody needs to reply to, and it's put to Europe organizations, but then the responsibility is sort of put on your plate.
Yeah, and just to make it clear, is that we are not calling for commoditization of data. Our main product is coffee, and we don't want to change that. So, so it should be clear that farmers are rational, but also this is their livelihood. They will engage in something that is productive to their end, and that's all. It is. Like I said in the first, we view data as a public good, and I think we should together start looking at free resources, for example, where such data can be put for ethical people to use for research, for publication, and such publications are free for anyone to access, not these that you have to pay, you have to do that, which later on now even commoditizes and it's discriminative to data.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I really like data for the public good. But I also personally feel like once there's value made, it should also go back to the source. If a brand can use certain data to share indeed about, for example, living income or other things that your farmers are actually putting hard work in to collect the data and to actually do that work, and it's commodified at the brand level, for example, my personal feeling is also then, hey, can we give something back to everybody in the chain make sure to benefit from this value?
Like we said the other time, that the general sense is that the European supply chains ask a lot of an African producer, which they are not willing to pay. So if that value created is transferred back to the farmer, not specifically in price, then we are good. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah. And if we just one question, if we turn that around, is there data that you would actually like to get from the European producers and the brands which you're not getting now? Like it's a lot of asking them from you data. Is there also a way back? Are they giving you data, or is there anything would be interesting for you to receive?
I'll use a living example. We had just field surveys, a baseline survey with our partner Fairfood Original, and it was an interesting conversation we had with farmers deep in the villages, and we had a representative from Fairfood Original telling them how much value and how much is charged up to when the consumer takes it, and the farmers were delighted. They understood how much the coffee is paid, how much every person gets along the value chain, and they were more happier, I could tell. So this is not much data, but somehow farmers want to know, why am I paid $1 and a product of the shores costs 10 or something?
Yeah.
It might not necessarily be bad, but information is good.
Yeah. I like that, and giving information back as well, seeing how we can let data flow through the whole chain and have a conversation with everybody around the table. Nice. We have 1 minute left, so we're rounding up. I don't think we have any questions from the audience, I just want to ask just the final thing, like what is the main takeaway you want to give to the people listening? Is there anything you want to share around data from HBCU side?
I think I'll say I am, as my position as a projects person, I am every once in 3 days, I'm answering a question on data, giving away data. And somehow this increasing request is increasing in terms of cost in one, but the much riskier is the data security. So if also regulations are made to ensure that as producers are giving this data, it is much protected the other way, the other side where we do not have control, then for us as producer networks, that would mean that would comfort us and would embrace this migration, this transition to digitization, and I believe it is for the good of the coffee subsector.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think to summarize, data has a lot of value for the sector, and you see that as well. And for the farmers, as long as the value is distributed evenly and we can share it throughout the chain in an open and secure way. Yeah, I think it's very interesting. I'm super excited to follow your journey towards your digitization process. Yeah, thank you so much for joining me in this talk.
Welcome.
And yeah, we'll speak again. And for everybody online, this talk will also be published on YouTube if you want to watch it back. And you can always share any questions with Derrick or me and reach out. So thank you for listening in.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.